The day up 5 points at 74.22. The pound buys $1.27 and a euro 12. LBC weather staying largely dry and cloudy overnight, especially in the far north of England and Scotland. A few showers further south, a low of 7. Tomorrow drier with plenty of sunshine for most and a high of 26 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, Boris has come out of hiding. No, he's not going on the Sky News debate tonight, head-to-head with Jeremy Hunt, but at 10 o'clock last night, he agreed to be interviewed by the BBC's Laura Kuenssberg, and this morning, he was in the studio, where I am right now, talking to Nick Ferrari, and more developments from Boris this afternoon. But let's just listen to Boris talking to Nick Ferrari, and I have to say the first part of the interview was all about him not wanting to answer personal questions. And OK, I expected that answer because he said that consistently. Then it came to the photograph. You know, the two sitting in the Sussex countryside, holding hands, and Nick kept asking him, when was this photograph taken? How can you claim to want privacy when things like this are being put out into the public domain? That part of it, I have to say, wasn't very edifying, and Boris wasn't very believable. But let's focus tonight on the really big question. Let's focus on Boris and Brexit and how believable or credible his plans are. Because in the end, that is what really, really matters. So here he was talking to Nick about the big picture on Brexit.
The challenge for us all in Parliament is to get this thing done, get it over the line in a responsible way.
You say get it done, and I saw you yesterday. It seems to be down to a high level of enthusiasm, no. I get that, and threatening to walk away with 39 billion. Is that effectively the policy?
No, but those two things are important.
But
what you need, in addition, of course, is you need to disaggregate the elements of the current withdrawal agreement, which is basically dead. You need to take the serviceable bits, and there's some good stuff about EU citizens, and the 3.2 million who are loved and valued and who contribute to the life of this country. They deserve to have their rights protected. We should pass that in UK law, get that done immediately.
OK, and he went on to put more meat on the bones.
What you need to do is look at the money, which is at the high end of their expectations, 39 billion, and I think we need a bit of creative ambiguity about when and how much of that money is going to be paid and what kind of deal it will be payable for. And the most important thing is to sort out the problem that so many MPs spotted in the withdrawal agreement, and on all sides of the House. It wasn't just Eurosceptics in the Tory benches, it was Labour MPs. Everybody disliked vehemently the proposals for the Northern Irish backstop.
Yes, so what happens in Northern Ireland?
So number one, you do not have any kind of hard border. The United Kingdom will not impose checks in Northern Ireland, absolutely not.
So how will the monitoring take place?
And as you saw a brilliant report yesterday, Greg Hands, Nicky Morgan and others, more out today. There are other techniques, maximum facilitations you can use to check for rules of origin, to counteract smuggling and contraband.
And you see the EU buying this?
From the frontier. I do.
OK, well, I mean, he was getting into his stride a bit here. And then the ultimate question, what about no deal? And what role possibly could GATT play?
It is vital as a country that we get ready to come out without an agreement if we must.
But how will we trade?
Well, in the same way that we normally trade. And that is to say that you can either... There are two possibilities.
But if we walk away, that GATT goes against the United Kingdom, doesn't it, if we walk away?
No. Well, there are two possibilities.
Does it or doesn't it?
It doesn't have to. Here's what you could do.
So Mark Carney is wrong when he said if we walk away, GATT does not apply.
Well, he's right in the sense that GATT Article 24, paragraph 5b, makes it perfectly clear that two countries that are in the process of beginning a free trade agreement may protract their existing arrangements
what is
until
the legal
until
basis
such time
of walking away.
Hang on, I'm just talking about
finish
GATS
the train,
24.
yeah. Okay.
May protract their existing arrangements until such time as they've completed the new free trade agreement, and that's a very hopeful prospect. Let's just go into that in some depth, because that is the way forward. What you need to
Mark
to
Carney
happen,
says it's not, though, Mr. Johnson.
Well, where Mark is right is saying that implies mutuality. There has to be an agreement on both sides. Where I think there has been some confusion.
Where is he wrong?
Well, he's wrong in thinking that it's not an option. It's certainly an option.
Well, that's Nick Ferrari this morning on Nick Ferrari's show. It was Boris Johnson. How clear is he? I'm not sure that words like disaggregate necessarily hit home with LBC listeners. What he's talking about doing is taking Monsieur Barnier's treaty and chucking bits of it out and getting it rewritten. He then talks about the 39 billion. We need to use some creative ambiguity, which means we're not going to give it all to them. And again, it's not very clear. I did think it lacked a bit of clarity. He was saying an awful lot of things at the same time. But this afternoon, for the first time in this campaign, Boris actually got onto the front foot, and he sent Jeremy Hunt a letter. And he said, if I become Prime Minister, we will leave the EU on the 31st of October, deal or no deal. Today, I've asked Jeremy Hunt whether he will also commit to this date, no matter what. We must keep our promises to the British people and deliver Brexit. No ifs, no buts. Now that actually is quite clear messaging. I know exactly what he's saying there. And Jeremy Hunt's replied, hi Boris, it's good to talk, but no need for snail mail. Why not turn up to Sky tonight and I'll give you full and frank answers. So a slightly more interesting exchange this afternoon. But listening to Boris this morning, on with Nick Ferrari, and I think it's important to add these comments that he's made this afternoon. Do you think BoJo has got his mojo back? Because I said yesterday it wasn't just that he was being hidden by his minders, he actually looked to be a little bit withdrawn. If you think, yep, he's got it back, call me on 0345 6060 973, or maybe you think he still seems a little bit deflated, in which case text to 84850. And let me ask you, do you think if Boris Johnson wins, we will leave on the 31st of October? And you can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and committed Facebook watchers can comment there too. Has he got his mojo back? Well, Jeremy Hunt got too cocky. Now Boris has put him on the spot with this letter. Hilarious, says Tony. His lack of integrity and his relaxed attitude to the truth were glaringly exposed by Ferrari this morning. I wouldn't want him as a friend, and he certainly isn't PM material. He ain't made of the right stuff, says Jason from Epsom, somewhat witheringly. Nigel, I think we've just got to accept that Boris is the least worst of the current people at the top of the Conservative Party, says Neil in Buckinghamshire. Yes, BoJo has got his mojo back, and he was right on GATT. Carney and all are wrong, deliberately, says Jennifer. I have to say, on Article 24 of GATT, and we've been hearing previously, in fact, commentators all day coming on LBC saying, no, it's all too difficult because somebody else could veto it, only if they could prove it was going to do them harm. And given that these arrangements are in existence already, and all we'll be doing is looking for a continuum whilst we looked at a trade deal, not a political deal with the EU, I can't see the problem. But that's by the by. Let's go to Simon in Abergavenny. Simon, was it a different Boris? Was it the real Boris today?
No, I don't think it was, Nigel, at all. Obviously, I think his campaign team are very much on top of him and all over him. And he has obviously kind of taken heed and tried to dispel some of that. But I still believe that he looks a little bit kind of, certainly for me, not very convincing in terms of kind of his Brexit plan. In fact, I'd go as far as to say, and I'm an ardent Brexiteer and love your party and love your show, but I would say probably I'm more inclined, personality-wise, to go for Hunt.
Are you really?
Yeah, definitely so.
Is that on the grounds that he looks more competent, or, what are the qualities of Hunt that you like?
He's got a bit more of a stand-back approach. He seems more pragmatic. A lot of what he's saying with Brexit, I don't kind of like that rhetoric, but it's political rhetoric. I'm not a politician, but he is right with Parliament. The only thing I think he is wrong on is he wants to cause... he's dead against a general election. Obviously, he's going to have to maybe get a general election to get this over the line because of what's going on with Parliament.
Well, I think so too. I'll tell you what, Simon, thank you. At that point, let's listen to the part this morning of the debate with Nick Ferrari where the question of a general election did come up. Let's listen to Boris on general elections.
Thank you for your time. Boris Johnson appearing here.
Why are you running away from scrutiny?
I am not running.
You are fleeing.
Okay. If you're successful, you once said of Gordon Brown that it was a gigantic fraud that he inherited, Number 10. You, of course, would call an election, wouldn't you?
I think...
Now who's doing the running?
Right. I'm not running away.
Good question.
So would you perpetuate a gigantic fraud?
I think that the people of this country feel that they've been asked out to the polls quite a few times recently, in 2015, in 2016, and indeed in 2017. What they want, and the instruction they gave us, was to deliver...
No. You will perpetuate a gigantic fraud?
No.
So you will have a general election?
I would perpetuate a gigantic fraud unless we deliver
Ferrari on
Brexit.
full,
and there is
clearly.
one candidate standing in this contest who represents a fresh way of actually getting us out of the mire.
So you won't call the judge. So you'll apologise to Gordon Brown.
And who will deliver Brexit on October the 31st.
You'll apologise to Gordon Brown.
It's not the top of my priorities to apologise to Gordon Brown.
No, not top of mine either. Well, there we are. So Boris doesn't really want to have a general election. Carl, unimpressed, lives in Marlow, says no MoJo for BoJo. His interview this morning was full of obfuscation. And I have to say, I listened to every word of that interview with Nick Ferrari this morning, and I did not think, and I'm not being unkind, but I did not think Boris Johnson came out of it terribly well. I don't think there was any real clear messaging. We did at the end there get a little bit of toing and froing between Boris and Nick, and that was a little bit more of what you'd expect Boris to be and how you'd expect him to be. I thought the letter this afternoon that he put out to Hunt was quite clever, indeed, as was Hunt's reply. But on the big question, has BoJo got his MoJo back? Well, I'll give him that he's back on the front foot. I'll give him he's out of hiding. I'll give him at least he is out there talking to people. I think it's quite a big improvement from where he's been for the last few days, but it's certainly not the Boris Johnson that became Mayor of London, the Boris Johnson that became a national figure, the Boris Johnson that made people smile. He's not quite there yet. Maybe he's turned the corner. I don't know. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show at 6:15 and time for news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Boris Johnson has called on his Conservative leadership rival Jeremy Hunt to follow his lead and commit to delivering Brexit by the end of October, no matter what. A court's heard a man was stabbed 18 times in front of his son 5 minutes after boarding a train to London's Waterloo in a row over blocking an aisle. Australia have beaten England by 64 runs in their Cricket World Cup match at Lord's. LBC weather staying largely dry and cloudy overnight, especially in the far north. A few showers further south with a low of 7 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katrina Ridley. One lane remains closed on the M25 clockwise at junction 30 for Lakeside, queuing to the Brook Street roundabout following a broken down car. Anti-clockwise, one lane closed from junction 3 for the Swanley interchange to junction 2 for the Darrenth interchange, queuing to Orpington again after a breakdown. And that's not helped by the closure of the A2 eastbound. Queues completely stationary between the Bean interchange and Northfleet, slow to the Danson interchange, and that's because of an accident. On the trains, delays of up to 25 minutes and some cancellations on Southern and at Gatwick Airport, and that's following earlier signalling problems, and a reduced service is running on Gatwick Express.
This is LBC.
At Indeed, we understand that when it comes to hiring, it's important to have a large talent pool to choose from. But sometimes too many good options can be overwhelming. That's why Indeed doesn't just give you access to a large pool of job seekers. We also offer screener tools that let you instantly narrow down your search. Hone in on hiring with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/redeem. Terms and conditions apply.
The Battle for PM. Follow it live on LBC.
When it comes to cruising, you don't want to feel like just another number. Thankfully, the new smaller boutique ships from Saga offer a more personal service. There's a door-to-door chauffeur to take you to and from the ship.
Bon voyage, Mr. Goodman.
Cheers! Every cabin has a balcony with a sea view. Beautiful. Dine at one of the intimate speciality restaurants. Delicious. And each ship has a whole host of venues to match your mood. And guess what? I'm in the mood for dancing. It's a boutique cruise experience personal to you. Boutique Cruises by Saga for your spirit of discovery.
Save up to 35% on our all-inclusive cruises. Search Spirit of Discovery to find out more. Over 50s only.
So, your accountant does your audit for you, looks at your accounts, calculates your tax, stuff like that. But would you benefit from long-term advice, an expert to look at your business model and help your business grow? And most importantly, someone to look after you, the owner. At Barnes Rofe, our partners get to know their clients and want to become part of their team. Is it time to see what we can do for you? Arrange your free consultation at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
This year we will sell our 250,000th boiler for free, and you could be that lucky winner. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Clearance at John Lewis & Partners Oxford Street is now on. There are thousands of great offers, from kitchen and homeware to fashion and beauty, as well as expert advice from our partners and a minimum 2-year guarantee on all our electricals. More of what you love for less. Clearance now on.
Starting a business is a test of character. Opening a business account shouldn't be. In fact, it should be effortless. With Tide Business Banking, you can open a current account in minutes with no monthly fees, invoicing, accounting integration, and much more. It's why we're trusted by over 70,000 UK businesses. Download the Tide app or search Tide Business Banking today. Subject to terms and conditions, account approval and opening times may vary depending on checks required.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Has BoJo got his mojo back? A little bit of it, but it's still not the same old Boris. That's my view. Tell me I'm wrong. And Gordon Brown, who we mentioned just before the break, well, he really is back active in politics. He interfered really heavily in the European election campaign, wrote the most extraordinary letter to the Electoral Commission, accusing the Brexit Party of all sorts of things, and they, within hours of receiving the letter, had raided the offices. But that wasn't the end of it. Today, he was giving a speech to the Fabian Society, warning that the union was not safe in the hands of Boris Johnson, and finishing by saying, I want to argue specifically against the hijacking of patriotism by Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, a political deception that has tried to present an act of economic self-harm, a no-deal Brexit, on October the 31st, as a patriotic act. So Gordon Brown is out there firing all the bullets that he's got. Don't think I'm going to be too scared by it, but hey, Nigel, we can't assess Boris at this stage. It's all words. The true assessment will be done on the 31st of October. Well, Ollie, that's true. He does keep saying that we will leave on the 31st of October. And it was interesting this morning that he was asked a question about did he think that MPs would change their minds? Because, we've got rumours that perhaps up to 12 Tory MPs could vote, even on day one, to bring him down as Prime Minister, to vote with Labour. And Boris says that he thinks that once he wins, gets into the House of Commons, it's going to sink in to people's minds what happened in those European elections. He talked extensively about that with Nick this morning, that everything changed because we didn't leave on the 29th of March, and he thinks that actually MPs fearing for their seats will rally behind him and, if necessary, will vote for a WTO Brexit. That's what he's saying, but I have to say I'm not sure. Anthony, unimpressed on Twitter, says he's a bumbling buffoon. He'll bottle it on Halloween. Nigel, give Boris the time to sort out Brexit. It's only just started. He will get us out. Give him time, says Tom in Basingstoke. Tom, from the day they announce who the next Prime Minister is, he will have exactly 101 days to sort it out. Now, they always say, don't they, the first 100 days are what matters. Well, boy, in this case, he's really going to have it to prove. John is calling from Carmarthen. Good evening, John.
Oh, good evening, Nigel.
Hello there. So what did you make of Boris this morning?
Well, first of all, I thought the interview was really bad. In fact, embarrassing. They had no right to go through him like they did. Mm-hmm. He's trying to be the Prime Minister, fair enough. But his personal, private life is his own. And you're not telling me that the average person doesn't have a row with his missus or vice versa. And your guy just wanted sensationalism. So that was bad from the idea of LBC.
All right, John, hang on a second, all right? Nick Ferrari did ask the question about the police being called blah, 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 which Boris didn't answer, and they didn't spend long on that. Where Nick did spend a long time, and where it got very heated, was over this photograph that was issued yesterday. Do you not think, to some extent, that Boris Johnson's trying to have his cake and eating it by saying, I want total and absolute privacy, and then into the public domain, after rumours, one of the newspapers yesterday saying 4 major rows in 6 weeks, and you believe what you want to believe, John, but into the public domain was put a photograph that clearly Boris Johnson was conscious of. That was the point Nick was making.
Yes, he was making it, and he wanted to know how long ago it was taken, and I don't feel that LBC or anyone else should have interfered with that. We're after a Prime Minister.
So why did the Prime Minister put that picture out, which appeared on the front page of all those newspapers?
What, you're saying Boris Johnson put it out?
A potential Prime Minister? Well, I think so, John, don't you?
No.
Really?
They got loads of pictures, but let's get back to the issue.
All right, John, I tell you what, let's get back to the issue. I agree with you.
Right. The issue is, who is going to get us out of the European Union? You're not telling me Hunt is. Hunt couldn't even organise and run the health service. Now, we all know that's not an easy thing, but he bumbled through it. He totally bumbled through it. And now he's thrown his hat in to lead the country. I don't think the guy is up to it. You can run down Boris, and I'm not on either side, but Hunt to be the head of this country, and he's not even coming up with the answers what he's going to do, he will follow Mrs. Thatcher's idea. Mrs. May's idea of just bumbling along. Will they help us along?
Do you think Boris Johnson was a good Foreign Secretary, John?
Yes, I do.
OK, fine.
I think he did it through the back door, quietly, but I think he did it properly. And when the European Union is waving their finger at us, go outside and look and count how many French, German cars there are, and say they're going to wave their finger at us? No, I don't think so.
Well, John, on this business of leaving on the 31st of October, you know, I didn't think he was terribly convincing on Ferrari this morning because it was too confused. But when he puts out, you know, the message that he put out this afternoon, which I've praised already, you know, then he's very, very clear, isn't he? He's saying we must keep our promises and deliver Brexit. No ifs, no buts, we're leaving deal or no deal. When I hear that language, it's very, very clear. But, John, if Hunt is the one who can't answer that question, why on earth, tell me, is Johnson not doing that with Hunt face-to-face on Sky News tonight? Because that would be the moment, John, wouldn't it? We could see the two men face-to-face, and Boris there and then could convince us that he really was the man.
Yes, I think he's playing a game here. I understand what you're saying. Perhaps he's playing the same game as the American president. You know what I mean? He's given everyone a chance to psychologically play the game. But I think at the end of the day, everyone can look at it in different ways. But I think Boris, especially on tonight, what he said, let's wait and see what Mr. Hunt's going to come back with. I don't think he's going to come back. He's too frightened.
John, I'd love to see them battling this out face to face. I really would. John, I thank you for your call. And John felt that Nick was too harsh on him. But actually, he was so unbelievable over the picture, it seemed to me. But hey, Boris was terrible this morning. He was constantly blagging. Yes, Nick Ferrari pushed him on his private life, but he waffled on the political questions, is the point that Fred from Coulsdon is making. Chris on Twitter says, yeah, BoJo is mostly back on form, but Hunt is onto him. Yeah, Hunt tweeted around about this Sky debate that Boris isn't coming to. Hashtag BoJo no show. So yeah, Hunt is on to him. But I do agree, Chris. I think his performance today has been a lot better than it has for the last few. And I know he's been under huge pressure and huge levels of attack. But I thought the letter that he put out this afternoon was the best thing he's done in the campaign so far. I didn't think this morning on LBC was a huge success for him. Ava is calling from North Cadbury in Somerset. Hi, Ava.
Hello, Nigel.
Hello there. So, is it back to the old Boris?
Well, I wasn't that crazy about the old Boris to begin with, so I don't really care about that.
Right.
I think what worries me, Nigel, is that I don't think either of these guys have the conviction to carry through Brexit. And I've got a feeling that if we do leave on the 31st, it'll be with, and it has to be with the approval of Parliament. I think it's going to be some kind of deal that is not any better than the one that we've already been offered. And I don't know. If we don't leave, I think it means for sure a general election, and the Conservatives are going to lose so badly. But who is going to be in the leading position? That's the frightening thing. And I think the Conservatives are kind of depending on scaring us into thinking that they're the only ones that can do this. But I'm not convinced.
Well, yeah, I mean, you obviously don't see Boris Johnson as a conviction politician.
No.
I think generally that's been the case, but he has nailed his colours to the Brexit mast. I mean, isn't he staking his entire political reputation on winning this and delivering Brexit?
Yeah, but didn't Mrs May do the same thing?
That's right. I'd nearly forgotten. 108 times she told us we were going to leave on March the 29th. Look, it could be, Ava, that he's saying this because he just wants to win, and he may not be able to deliver it. Isn't the reality, Ava, that actually what he may have to face up to is a general election?
I think that's what it'll come to. But I mean, it really scares me to think of it, think of the options. I mean, it's going to be a huge risk for the country. We've absolutely no way of knowing which way it will go. I mean, I hope it goes the Brexit way, but
I think it could do. And I think the polling we've seen in the last few days indicates that actually Eurosceptic opinion is hardening, not softening. Ava, thank you very much indeed. Martin on Facebook says, why does Boris need to debate? He's in front and the general public have no say, only Conservative members. Yet, Martin, we're talking about the next Prime Minister here. I think we've got a right to see the two of them debate head-to-head. And if Boris really is convinced that he's got the right Brexit plan and that Hunt's weak, he could tear him to pieces tonight on Sky News. But it isn't happening, and I think that's a bit of a shame. Anyway, it's been a better day for Boris, but I still don't think that it's the old Boris. I really don't. It's not the Boris that used to come in regularly with Nick Ferrari when he was Mayor of London and do those phone-ins. He was a much more ebullient fellow then than he is now. Something isn't quite right. That's my view. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 6:30 in time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
Boris Johnson's called on his Conservative leadership rival Jeremy Hunt to follow his lead and commit to delivering Brexit by the end of October, no matter what. The Foreign Secretary's replied he will give him an answer in person if Mr Johnson turns up to take part in a TV debate later. Britain's next Prime Minister will be announced on the 23rd of July. The match commander on the day of the 1989 Hillsborough disaster will face a retrial over the deaths of 95 of the 96 Liverpool fans. A jury failed to reach a verdict on gross negligence manslaughter charges 74-year-old David Duckenfield was facing in April. England have suffered a third defeat at the Cricket World Cup. The tournament hosts have lost by 64 runs to rivals and holders Australia at Lord's. LBC weather staying largely dry and cloudy overnight, especially in the far north of England and Scotland. A few showers further south, warm and humid too, with a low of 7 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
Currently the leader in the running has become the leader of the Conservative Party and indeed the Prime Minister. I speak of Boris Johnson, who's opposite me right now. And why the picture today?
Newspapers will print whatever they're going to print.
Well, where did it come from?
What I want to do is
Boris
talk
Johnson,
about...
where did the picture come from?
The longer we spend...
Where did the picture come from?
I'm not going to ask her.
But you knew the picture was being put out there.
I can't determine what the newspaper...
That's a yes or no, and then we'll move on, Mr. Johnson.
I can't determine what the newspaper...
Did you know the picture... This has nothing to do with your... Did you know the picture was being put out there, Mr. Johnson?
There are all sorts of pictures of me out on the internet, which pop up from time to time.
When was it taken?
Well, I don't get. Listen, you are.
So that's a state
you're asking
secret.
me, Nick. I'm not going to comment on the possibility tomorrow.
When did you last have your haircut? 3 weeks, 6 weeks?
We have a fantastic prospect before us.
So this is at least 6 weeks old.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero, get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Does it matter to you how your money's invested? Think about it. You've got your own values, but do the people who invest your money share them? With a Wealthify stocks and shares ISA, you can put your money into an ethical plan. Just tell us how you want to invest. Are you cautious, adventurous, or somewhere in between? And start your Wealthify ethical ISA today. Easy. For more information, download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
There are few greater joys in life than a sumptuous hot bath. Time to let the stresses of the day just melt away. Unless your plumbing goes. That's a recipe for a meltdown. But Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable. So if you need a plumber or other professionals in their trade, just relax. Trusted Trader are only a click away.
Did you know that Pimlico Plumbers have an utterly fabulous 24-hour service for plumbing, heating, drains, roofing, electrics, appliances, carpentry and building? Whatever your predicament, Pimlico Plumbers can send a friendly face to your door within the hour. Shh! And just between us, their work even comes with a 12-month guarantee. They aren't just any old tradesmen, they're Pimlico Plumbers, and they're always available on 0207 928 8888 or at pimlicoplumbers.com.
At the AA, we're always trying to make your journey better. Our mechanics fix 8 out of 10 cars at the roadside, usually within 30 minutes of arriving. You could say we're simply the best. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong song. Join today from just £4.50 a month. Visit theaa.com. The AA, because anything can happen. New customers only. T's and C's apply.
You can complain free to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman about missold PPI. Alternatively, if you haven't got the time or the inclination, then just get the claims guys to manage the claims process for you. With the August 29th deadline approaching, time's at a premium anyway. So if you can't find your paperwork or you're not even sure you have PPI, it's definitely time to make a decision and start your PPI claim before it's too late. Text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now.
The Claims Guys.
High quality, affordable kitchens designed in your own home. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
Book your free Room Sense home design visit and we'll measure up, show you samples, create a stunning kitchen design and give you a quote all before we leave.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Book today at roomsense.co.uk.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Britain is an increasingly divided society, divided by politics, by class and by geography. This is according to the Sutton Trust and Social Mobility Commission, who today made the point, and they've made it before, but it is a fair point, it is worth thinking about for a second, that whilst only 7% of the country attend private education, 65% of senior judges went to those schools, 59% of senior civil servants went to those schools, 57% of members of the House of Lords went to those schools, and 40% of people in senior journalistic positions went to those schools. The class system is alive and well. There is no evidence that social mobility is about to change or improve whatsoever. And we will, once Brexit's out of the way. Well, I don't know how long that's going to be, but if and when Brexit's out of the way, it's one of the things I would really love to debate here on LBC. Is it decline of grammar schools? Are there fewer people from average income families getting the same opportunities that perhaps their grandparents did in the 1940s and 1950s. It's an issue that we'll come back to it. But for now, is Boris getting this right? Has he got his mojo back? I thought he was better today, slightly, but I don't really think he has. BoJo is clearly playing a game, letting Hunt play as many cards as possible. For BoJo to face Hunt now would be madness. Anything that happens now will be forgotten by the end of July. Yeah, but hang on, Win. The votes that go out to Conservative Party members are going out in the first week of July. So actually, if he really wants to impress the electorate that matters to him at this stage, he needs actually to move and do something face-to-face with Hunt in the course of the next week. At least that's how it seems to me. Jeremy Hunt will see Brexit in terms of damage limitation, like May. It has to be Boris, says Sandra from Loughton. Now, Andrew's got a theory. I think BoJo may be burnt out. Being a politician is pressure, and add his other work and it's all enough. He's permanently in the public eye. Well, Andrew, Boris has been a very high-profile figure for over a decade in this country. He does clearly, despite what people say, clearly work pretty blooming hard. Is he burnt out? I don't know. I just think he's lost his edge. That's my feeling. Linda is a new caller from Southfields in London. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Mr. Farage.
So, has he got his mojo back, Linda?
Okay, first of all, I think you've got the mojo.
Right. Okay.
Right. I've actually swapped from Conservative to Brexit Party.
Right.
But I do think that Boris is being suppressed, and Jeremy Hunt will never, ever, do the deal properly. I believe that come the time, if one of them concedes to the Robin Tilbrook court case, which proves that Theresa May actually was asked to get an extension, not seek one. Well, I think you would be right up there, sir.
Linda,
Linda,
I know all about this court case, and there are some people pinning their hopes on it. But that aside, whatever the politics are, Hunt looks self-confident, out there, almost to the point of being cocky, doesn't he? And Boris looks half depressed.
Guts. But if you were in Parliament, you would be an absolute hero. What we need is people...
Or a villain.
...to vote for you, to get you in Parliament, because I know that you know about the case. I know that Hansard has in the House of Commons library. It's out there.
Yeah,
and I honestly believe...
Linda, I'm not going to talk about an ongoing case, all right? I really mustn't do that. I'm not allowed to. But Linda, you say I've got the mojo, and that's incredibly sweet of you. Now, Craig thinks Boris is right on Facebook. His tactics are correct. The media's dead against him. He's right to avoid. But, Craig... All right, but this would have been tonight, one-on-one. And, yeah, Kay Burley would have asked all sorts of questions, and no doubt she'd have asked similar type questions to the ones that Nick Ferrari asked this morning. But he'd have had a chance, face-to-face with Hunt, to say, look, you're just not going to do this, really, are you? And to see how Hunt responded. He hasn't taken the opportunity. I think it is a shame. Nigel has highlighted Boris's problem in trying to praise him. He sounds strong and clear in a letter that can't be properly scrutinised. But the minute he has someone in front of him testing him and his policies, and he falls apart, says Ollie from Oxford. Ollie, I have to say it was similar when Ian Dale cross-questioned him on the stage in Birmingham on Saturday. Ian asked him a series of questions, and they'd come, not just from Ian, but from the audience that were there who'd put the questions in. And by the end of it, I hadn't got a clue where he stood on the third runway at Heathrow. I hadn't got a clue where he stood on HS2. He somehow... There doesn't seem to be the certitude about him. I don't know what it is. Julia is calling from Nottingham. Good evening, Julia.
Good evening, Mr. Farage. How are you?
I am all right. No, I'm fine, but it's Boris. Is Boris all right? That's the question.
Well, I'll be honest, I've been a Conservative all my life. I'm not a member of the Conservative Party, but I have voted Conservative all my life until the Brexit vote, and I voted for you and your Brexit Party. And I would not trust Boris now. And I think that his personal life does matter. He is taking the job of a Prime Minister, and it's like going for any interview. If you're a doctor, a nurse, a school teacher in the fire service or in the police service, you have to go through full scrutiny. I don't know if you know, but they do DBS checks on you, your personal life. If you went to a doctor, Charles, or you wanted a foster, they go into everything about you and your family. And therefore, he is taking one of the most important jobs for our country, and he should be under every scrutiny, not just him, but Hunt as well. And I'm sorry, but if he's not prepared to come out face to face and face the British public, then he definitely hasn't got any mojo. I'm sorry.
Do you think, Linda, Julia, sorry, do you think that his personal problems are affecting his public political performance?
I do. I do think his personal problems may affect it. I don't think there is an issue, but he should be able to answer clearly and honestly to everyone. And if he'd have come out and said, yes, my girlfriend and I had a bit of an argument, then I think most people would have said, that's fine. But to put a picture of himself sitting in a park bench when clearly that picture was not taken on the day it said it was taken, because his total demeanour, his hair and everything didn't match what it currently does, then I think he probably leaked that picture to the press himself or gave it to somebody else to do, and I would not trust him as far as I could throw him. And that wouldn't be very far.
Julia,
I'm sorry.
Julia, I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that when Nick Ferrari asked him this dead straight, he just point blank ignored it. And I agree with you. I think if he'd said on Saturday, look, we had an argument. Who hasn't? Hey, it's life.
Yeah,
the police were called by some malicious neighbours looking to cause problems. They saw there was no problem. It's the end of the story. I think this story would have died 48 hours earlier than it did. And Julia, very interesting phone call. Thank you. And Julia, thinking that somehow his personal problems are impacting on his public performance. Interesting. Now, Gareth from Caerphilly says, I've adored Mr. Johnson, but Nigel, I think you're right. He's like a disco, but without his fantastic music playlist of old, something is missing. He's lost his sharpness and shine. Gareth, he has lost his sharpness and shine. Is it that he's just being ultra cautious because he's in the lead or feels that he's in the lead? It can't just be that. He was there in that chair with Nick Ferrari for a full 25 minutes this morning, and you'd have thought, wouldn't you, at some point, the humorous, playful, witty Boris would have burst out, and Nick would have been in gales of laughter, and it just didn't happen. He hasn't really got his mojo back at all, has he? Politically, a bit cleverer today, but it's still not the same Boris. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Boris Johnson has called on his Conservative leadership rival Jeremy Hunt to follow his lead and commit to delivering Brexit by the end of October, no matter what. A court said a man was stabbed 18 times in front of his son 5 minutes after boarding a train to London's Waterloo in a row over blocking an aisle. Australia have beaten England by 64 runs in their Cricket World Cup match at Lord's. LBC weather staying largely dry and cloudy through tonight, especially in the far north. A few showers further south with a low of 7 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katrina Ridley. One lane remains closed on the M25 clockwise at junction 30 for Lakeside, queuing to the Brook Street roundabout following a broken down car. Anti-clockwise, one lane closed from junction 3 for the Swanley interchange to junction 2 for the Darrenth interchange, queuing to Orpington again after a breakdown. And that's not helped by the closure of the A2 eastbound. Queues completely stationary between the Bean interchange and Northfleet, slow to the Danson interchange, and that's because of an accident. On the trains, delays of up to 25 minutes and some cancellations on Southern at Gatwick Airport, and that's following earlier signalling problems.
This is LBC.
Love the thrill of exploring? Fly British Airways and experience beyond the ordinary in Tobago. Waterfalls, rainforests, unspoilt beaches and turtles nesting. In Tobago, the undiscovered awaits around every corner. September holidays with flights and 7 nights hotel from $569 per person. Fly from Gatwick. Book by July 2nd at ba.com/Tobago. No one takes you there like British Airways. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Atoll protected.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo. Company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
At the AA, we're always trying to make your journey better. Our mechanics fix 8 out of 10 cars at the roadside, usually within 30 minutes of arriving. You could say we're simply the best. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong song. Join today from just £4.50 a month. Visit theaa.com. The AA, because anything can happen. New customers only. T's and C's apply.
The 7 dwarves were in a bit of a pickle. With the mines closing down, their finances were somewhat fickle. They looked to downsize their home fast, so Snow White could make her debts a thing of the past.
Boys, the cottage is looking well rough.
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who buy properties in any condition and can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 2 days, hassle-free. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
At Indeed, we understand that when it comes to hiring, it's important to have a large talent pool to choose from. But sometimes, too many good options can be overwhelming. That's why Indeed doesn't just give you access to a large pool of job seekers. We also offer screener tools that let you instantly narrow down your search. Hone in on hiring with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/redeem. Terms and conditions apply.
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
Do you want to give your kids a head start? Think about it. Are you all set up to help with uni fees or a house deposit? No? Then it's time to Wealthify. The sooner you start a junior ISA with Wealthify, the more you can build them a tax-free nest egg. Just invest a lump sum or pay in monthly and let Wealthify do the rest. Start a junior ISA today. For more information, download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Now, Julia, before the break, says that she believes Boris's personal problems are impacting on his political decision-making, and that's part of the reason why his mojo has gone. And a lot of you have commented about Nick Ferrari's interview this morning, his interview style, and the way Boris is dealing with some of this personal stuff. Let's just listen to the part when Nick asked Boris a question about the photograph that mysteriously appeared yesterday.
Did you know the picture was being put out there, Mr. Johnson?
There are all sorts of pictures of me out on the internet which pop up from time to time.
Did you know this picture was being put out?
I am aware of all sorts of pictures of me out on the internet. And it is entirely up to newspapers to decide what they want to print. But the longer we spend on this, I'm
guaranteeing you 20 minutes.
Let's get on.
I'm guaranteeing that. Did you know this picture was out there?
Of course, I knew that there was a picture like that in existence,
and you knew it was put out yesterday.
Whether it was the decision of the entirely up to newspapers to decide what they want to print.
When was it taken?
Well, I don't listen. You are
so that's a state secret.
You're asking me.
So that's a state secret when the picture was taken. So when was it taken?
It's not a state secret. It just happens to be something that I don't want to get into.
Because you won't even tell me when the picture was taken.
No, why should I?
Because it's not recent. Is it? Your hair in this photograph is not your hair currently, is it?
If I may say so, this conversation is now descending into...
Well, I'll be the judge of that.
Well, that was Nick and Boris this morning, but, all right, some of you think it's wrong. Dead wrong that was any of this personal intrusion. But and I understand that line of argument, and I honestly think what went on behind the closed doors of that flat is none of our business, all right? It only became a story because the police were called, probably maliciously. But when suddenly, almost riding to the rescue, to the defence against all these accusations of rows, a picture gets published, and he refuses to say when it was taken. You make your own minds up. Did that sound like believable, Boris? I don't think it really did. Maybe that is why he's having a few problems. But Chris on SMS says, nope, Boris is back on top form again today and will take us out no matter what. Nice to hear some positivity for a change regarding Brexit. Yep, well, certainly his writing this afternoon was very, very clear indeed. Claudia says to me on Twitter, I don't know much about Boris, but he doesn't strike me as the type who will stand at the back of the room while the EU discuss among themselves. He's got presence. Well, he used to have terrific presence. The thing we're debating, Claudia, right now is whether he still has that same level of presence. Let's go to Gareth, who's called in from Liverpool. Good evening, Gareth.
Good evening, Nigel. Hello.
Hello there. So,
right, well, I'm a former Labour Party member. Cancelled that a long time ago. A Conservative Party member.
A switcher.
Boris will get my vote.
Yep.
But to be fair, if you put Ronald McDonald in front of me and said he was going to vote, get us out of the EU properly, I'd vote for him. So, yeah, that's basically what's happening. But on a different note, the caller earlier said that Boris's personal problems are influencing his demeanour at the moment. And I don't think that's the case. I think the media blowing Boris's personal life out of proportion is affecting his state of mind. And what I think we are witnessing is the start of our very own Trump derangement syndrome. I can't watch American media anymore because I can't take it seriously, because they don't take an objective stance when they report the news anymore. It's all Trump bashing. And I fear that we are starting to see the beginning of Boris bashing, and I hope it's not, but everything you see, the emotionally incontinent media tend to, and I don't include LBC in that. LBC obviously has got a broad range of opinions, but if you put the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, it's Boris bashing constantly.
It is, Gareth. Gareth, it is, and I buy that, but I think if he dealt with this better, there'd have been less of it. That's my view. Gareth, thank you. You're going to vote for Boris. Daisy is a new caller from Bognor Regis. Good evening, Daisy.
Hi. I just think all this in the media by Jeremy Hunt, keep calling him a coward. He's trotting around the country with a stupid look on his face. He's had everybody on his back. And really and truly, if we had Jeremy Hunt, we might just well keep Theresa May. And I think Boris is the man for the job. And he can come and have a chat with you and you can both get it done together.
Daisy, do you think that Hunt's getting arrogant in this
very
campaign?
Arrogant. I think he's always been arrogant. When the Nazarene Sakari business, her husband said, well, Jeremy Hunt's got it sorted now. He's going to deal with it. He's done nothing. He's done no more than anybody else.
So your faith...
And it wouldn't have mattered.
No, I mean, listen, that may be right. But so, Daisy, your faith in Boris is completely undented, yeah?
Completely undented.
When I say that he lacks that pizzazz, he lacks that sparkle, he lacks that bit of shine that he used to have, do you see why I'm saying that?
I do agree with that, because if you were to believe the papers, there was a big piece today and there was a part there said that it wasn't just this Friday night when they had this spat. There's been hate mail. There's been a concerted effort by the people living around there and their little horrible friends with we hate Boris and get out and all this business. And I don't care who you are, no matter how much pizzazz you've got. I mean, yourself, you've been affected by the nasty people in this country.
Oh, Daisy,
and
I'm afraid that when something disappears called losers' consent in politics, and when Remainers are told by senior politicians that they are morally better than we Leavers, it encourages horrible behaviour.
This is it, and I think this has become what makes me sick about all the Remainers, they're right. Every one of them thinks they're right, and we're all a bunch of idiots. And I find that incredibly insulting. And Jeremy Hunt should remember he was one of them.
Yeah.
And I don't think a leopard changes his spots that much.
Daisy, strong opinions, thank you. I've got time for one more caller. Mitch, a new caller from Southport. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Nigel. Very nice to speak to you. I'm a 23-year-old leaver, avid leaver. I was thinking about this today, and I think the main problem in this country today is the media. I think they all coordinate. They knew exactly what they were doing from the moment that Boris was selected to go to the party members. They know he's got a strong backing, and they know exactly what he's got hidden in the past. And I think they've got so much in the locker to throw at him. He just doesn't care. I think this is why he doesn't want to do the debates. I mean, if you look at the BBC debate last week...
When Mitch, the media, hurled stuff at Donald Trump and did so during the campaign, he fought back, viciously on every single occasion. He punched back twice, rather than once. And it just seems that Boris is being a bit affected by it.
Yeah, I think he's just... maybe a little disheartened, because I think he's been waiting in the wings for so many years for, his chance to become Prime Minister. I think, obviously, at the moment, I think Boris Johnson is probably the right person to do the job. I think he's a bit of a Donald Trump, if you get me. He can let things go over his head, and I think he is willing to take us out on the 31st. I think that's what the country needs.
It wasn't as clear as it should have been with Nick Ferrari. It was with what he wrote this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed, Mitch. Boris can't win, can he? 1 minute he's a buffoon and shouldn't be running the country, and then when he's more statesman-like, he's not the same old Boris. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is within himself as a person, something has gone. And I'll finish with this. Adrian in Birmingham says, Boris is turning into a sponge cake with no flavour. Come on, Boris, where's the jam gone? I rather like that. I will be back on Thursday. I'm away tomorrow, but I'm back on Thursday at 6. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick, but up next, it's Ian Dale.
You always were a jammy dodger, weren't you?
Absolutely.
Now, we're undecided what to do for a 9 o'clock phone-in. I'm doing a Twitter poll. Should we do a phone-in on the Tory leadership, or should we ask, does heaven exist? Two contrasting phone-ins there. But at 8, did you know there's another leadership contest going on at the moment? It's in the Liberal Democrats. We'll be talking to one of the two contenders, Ed Davey, between 8 and 9. He'll be coming in to take your calls. Joe Swinson will be following him Monday next week. So lots to talk to Ed Davey about, not least his desire to decapitate Boris Johnson.